Yeah, this is medieval India. What was your experience? Now the test is over, revision is over, and what you experienced? Now you are relaxed and you can smile. You tell me what you experienced. What was your experience, Vinod? Okay, fine. About you, Raghav, Sudhi. Okay, fine. So maybe these are the same experiences with all of you guys. Am I right? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So you take it. That is, let us start with a popular saying of Winston Churchill. What was that? Success is always a journey from failure to failure, walking from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Am I right? This time also, when you attempted this much questions, you had many unfamiliar questions, or you faced difficulty like some questions are unanswerable, or you were confused with some choices, some options, etc. But comparing with your last time, you reduced that what is called your usual blunders and mistakes. You reduced. Am I right? So here, always you take care that you needn't worry about what is your score or what is your cutoff, what will be your negatives, negative marking, etc. Just leave it here. Okay, nobody is going to I mean scold you by checking, seeing your results, etc. Here I would say, what is your more focus must be you are covering maximum areas and maximum number of questions. That is very important here. Okay, so let us, without wasting time, let us get into this portion. Medieval India revision round. Okay, QLS round. And before going for that detailed discussion, let's have a very quick summary of this medieval India. What you have to study from medieval India. Okay, that is very fundamental to you. You should know what you have to study from this medieval India. Okay, medieval India, coming to your first module, I'm saying from UPC point of view. Okay, from UPC CSE point of view, what you have to study from medieval India. And I would say that if you are a serious aspirant, this is a non-skippable area. Usually UPC aspirants, skip medieval India. Don't skip it. Because nowadays they started asking more questions, and UPC always have an interdisciplinary approach. Okay, they can integrate, they can club multiple topics into a single, and they can ask you. In fact, they are asking last 2-3 years if you check. Now here, the very first module, which is all about the early medieval history. The early medieval history. This is very important because UPC asked so many questions, especially from its culture part. So early medieval history, probably from the mid of this 8th century AD to 12th century AD, you study some regional conflicts. Regional kingdoms are there, and their conflicts are there. This Kanuj triangle is there. Tripartite struggle is there. So there, Gurjara Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas, Palas. You will study their conflict, their struggle for the mastery over Kanuj. Now we know why that Kanuj was important for them. So you will study their political history, the chronology of the rulers, their contributions to art, architecture, literature, cultural contributions, Rashtrakutas. Rashtrakutas, we know that, okay, this Kailashnath temple. So their contributions to this temple architecture, contributions to art forms, contributions to literature, that part is very important. Same way you have to go for Palas. This year UPC asked a question in the mains examination. Please. This year UPC asked a question in the mains examination, like how the Palas, how they contributed to this growth of Buddhism, or how this Buddhism thrived because of Palas. Similar type of the question. Okay, so you should know what were the cultural contributions. That's very, very important. Palas had a significant contribution for the promotion of this Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism. Similarly, Rashtrakutas, how they promoted that temple architecture, or maybe this like what is called Brahmanism. Okay, so the cultural contributions you have to go through. Then the timeline, dynasty, chronology, etc. you have to go through. You study about the Rajput kingdoms also. In North Indian history, you study about the Rajput kingdoms. Agnikula clans are there, non-Agnikula clans are there. You study the Battle of Tarain, okay, 1191-92, Chandwar battle. So you study the Muhammad Ghori, his arrival and fight with Prithviraj Chauhan. So many historical battles are there, especially when it comes to your medieval India. Always take the chronology of the historical battles. Okay, very popular battles are there. Battles and their outcomes you must go through. This is very important. Okay, popular ruling dynasties are there. Their timeline or their chronology is very important for you. Okay, many cultural events are there. Probably from mid of this 8th century AD to almost 16th or 18th century AD. You can see many cultural events happened throughout this history. You see that it is Rashtrakutas, Palas, Prathigaras, Imperial Cholas, Hoysalas are there. Then this Vijayanagara Empire is there, Bahmani Kingdom. Then coming across Delhi Sultanate, then Mughal Empire, Marathas. Okay, so much events are there. Political, economic, social, cultural events are there. That timeline chronology you have to go through, which is important for your examination. Okay. Yeah, when you study this early medieval history, you will also study there are like a development of various schools of temple architecture. Nagara, Dravida, Vaishnava styles of temple architecture. In fact, UPSC asked questions from this. Okay, regional architecture, regional schools of architecture and these popular broad schools of temple architecture, especially Nagara, Dravida, Vaishnava styles of temple architecture, their salient features, their sponsors, their patrons, and their regional examples, etc. You have to go through many questions being asked by UPSC. Okay, this also we study here. Then Imperial Cholas are there. Imperial Cholas, just like a British colonial power, Imperial Cholas were colonial powers, over Sri Lanka and the Southeast Asia, etc. They had a very strong navy. They had this look east policy. They had a trade with this China, diplomatic relations with Southeast Asia, even with the Roman Empire. You imagine, okay, not a Roman Empire, that is Sangam Cholas. Okay, this Imperial Cholas means it is in the 9th, 10th, 11th centuries AD. So you see that Imperial Cholas, you have to study their political history, socio-cultural history, economic history, their trade relations, international relations, etc. You have to study well. In fact, UPSC asked questions. Okay, they were biggest contributors to Dravida style of temple architecture. Dravida style of South Indian style of temple architecture flourished during the time of these Imperial Cholas. Now you see this is Bhakti Sufi tradition. Bhakti Sufi tradition, this is a mystical experience within the religion, liberal movement or a renaissance movement, intellectual or a liberal reformist movement within Hinduism and Islam religion. So Bhakti Sufi movements are the another one of the bumper lottery for you from this medieval India. They can ask questions, for example, Bhakti Sufi saints are there, popular saints are there, and their teachings. Okay, teachings and the similarity and the dissimilarity between the teachings. Similarities and dissimilarities between the or among the teachings. Then there are different schools of philosophy. Different schools of philosophy propounded by these Bhakti saints. Okay, Bhakti thinkers or philosophers of this medieval India. Again, you have to go for their contributions to literature. Their contributions to literature, contributions to culture. Okay, contributions to these vernacular languages, etc. You have to go through. Okay, again next important. For example, different sects are there. In Bhakti and Sufi traditions, different sects are there. The divisions you must go through. Okay, these are some popular things you have to focus when you study these Bhakti Sufi traditions of this medieval India. Now Vijayanagara Empire is the next important module you have to study well is Vijayanagara Empire. You know that there are different dynasties which ruled this Vijayanagara Empire. Okay, starting with the Sangama, Saluva, Tuluva, Aravidu dynasties. The popular rulers and their contributions, their administrative reforms, and most importantly, who is that? Yeah, Krishna Devaraya. You remember Krishna Devaraya, okay? Krishna Devaraya, one of the very popular ruler of this Vijayanagara Empire. What were his administrative reforms, social reforms, economic reforms, or maybe his like revenue reforms, military reforms, etc. You have to go through. Some terminologies are the Amaranayaka system, you heard about that. Various taxation system, various judicial reforms, military reforms, revenue reforms go through. And contributions to architecture. Provida style of temple architecture, Vijayanagar temple architecture. Okay, secular architecture. You have to go through, that is very important. And the different sources about Vijayanagar Empire and the different foreigners' accounts about this Vijayanagar Empire. These are usually asked by UPC. These are the core areas you have to focus here. Then Bahmani Kingdom. Bahmani Kingdom, its 5 divisions are there. Contributions to this Deccani art architecture, you have to focus. Okay. Now it is, Delhi Sultanate. Delhi Sultanate. You see the movie Alauddin Khalji movie, that Padmavat movie. Okay, very beautifully he portrayed, and even she also portrayed those characters. Okay. Anyway, Alauddin Khalji, who comes from which dynasty? Khalji dynasty. So this Delhi Sultanate started with which dynasty? Slave dynasty. Slave dynasty. There is the founder of this Delhi Sultanate. Can you say? Qutbuddin Aibak. And one day he decided that after this biryani or after that lunch break, decided that we'll go for a horse polo. Unfortunately, fell down and died. That was again a UPC question. UPC asked, which of the following sultan died while playing horse polo? Okay, so that is the story start with this Qutbuddin Aibak, then coming to another powerful ruler. Yes, what was his name? Iltutmish. Many reforms of Iltutmish. Then you are coming across Balban. Razia is there, Balban is there. So Balban, the very serious ruler, and his serious reforms. Okay, you are smiling in front of me, slapping and sticking on the wall. Blood and iron policy of Balban. Okay, he called himself as I am the representative of God. Okay, nobody is over me, I am the superior. Okay, so Balban's reforms are very important. His blood and iron policy is very important. Yes, that is Balban. He never accepted Caliph as the supreme sovereign head of this Islamic fraternity, never accepted. Okay, so there are many occasions where he like what is called subordinated this what is called Sharia law or maybe Quranic law with his own personal laws. Okay, now Balban, after that it is Tughlaq dynasty, sorry, Khalji dynasty, very popular, Alauddin Khalji, and his many reforms are there, which is UPC's favorite area. Then it is coming to our most favorite guy, which is Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay, the guy who introduced so many novel reforms. Unfortunately, it was not suiting and matching that particular time. Okay, sometimes you see that Sagar Ilyas Jackie or Big B, if released today, means it will be blockbusters. Okay, so similar way, Muhammad bin Tughlaq introduced reforms now means there had been blockbusters. Okay, but unfortunately that time people couldn't understand. One day you wake up and you had your idli and dosha, and like soldiers are saying, Vinod, you shift from this Delhi to with all your property, carry your house on your head and go. Okay, many reforms introduced with many good intentions, but people suffered because of his reforms. Okay, so anyway, Muhammad bin Tughlaq and his reforms you have to focus. Then Sai dynasty, finally Lodi dynasty. Lodi dynasty. Okay, all these dynasties, the sultans, the reforms, and cultural contributions you have to focus. Then coming across this Mughal Empire, the biggest history of this medieval India, which is started with Babur. Okay, Babur. Then comes Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb. Okay, the golden era of this Mughal Empire, especially it is Akbar's reign. Akbar's reign is full of loads of events. Okay, not only matrimonial alliances, you see that Akbar is full of like, I mean, even full history of this medieval India, that is especially which is Akbar's reign. Even though he was not that much educated person, you can see that many of his reforms even followed after this Mughals also. Okay, his revenue reforms are there, educational reforms, military reforms, judicial reforms, land revenue reforms. So many reforms are there, agrarian reforms, all you have to go through. And their contributions to painting, art, architecture, literature, you have to go through, a favorite area for UPSC. Sher Shah Suri, another popular administrator of medieval India. Sher Shah Suri and his administrative reforms you have to focus. Then Maratha history, which is Shivaji the Great. Okay, his contributions to administration, his so-called courageous wars, military expeditions, all you have to focus. Finally, it is the advent of Europeans. Advent of Europeans, like who comes first here? Portuguese, Dutch, then British, French. These are the very popular powers arrived here. So what were the intentions behind their arrival? Their major settlements, their collaborations with Indian rulers, and finally how the British evolved to be the supreme European power out of these Europeans. Okay, these are the things you have to study in medieval India, and that is the end of medieval India. Okay, that is the end of medieval India. These only things you have to study from medieval India. So any questions UPSC has, definitely you will be in a position to answer them, provided you cover all these modules. Okay, now getting into our portion, that is today's revision test. And the first question was, Arjun, you can carry a question from there. Okay, from the office you take a question. So, with reference to Sufism in medieval India, consider the following statements. With reference to, just to see how the UPSC framed the questions. These are exactly based on UPSC patterns, the questions, model questions are given. So, Sufism in medieval India, consider the following. With reference to Sufism in medieval India, consider the following. Sufis followed pilgrimages, ascetic practices, strict observance of the Sharia. 3 are given. Now you come to the answer choice, which will be correct. Sufis, can we say they followed pilgrimages? They observed these pilgrimages, fasting, charity, repentance of the sins, or ascetic practices. Do you think so? Eh? Yes, obviously, ziyarat. Going on pilgrimage is called ziyarat. That term is very important. Okay, they observed pilgrimages, or maybe they followed pilgrimages. And obviously ascetic practices, meditation, ascetic practices they propagated. Then there is no strict observance of Sharia. There is no strict observance of Sharia or Quranic law. They liberally interpreted this Quranic law. Okay, so there is no strict observance of this Quranic law. So first and second are correct, third one is wrong. So your answer has to be 1 and 2 only. A is your answer. Okay, so when you study Sufism, few things are there. Sufism from 11th to 12th century to 16th century, Sufism was popular here. This is a mystical experience or mystical interpretation of this Islamic Quran or Holy Scripture. Okay, again you see that Sufism had many resemblance with those teachings of these Bhakti traditions. Okay, many resemblance are there. And again, this is liberal interpretation, and they believes in this through these devotional songs, music, dance, you can get closer to God. That is Sufism. Again, you can see that they practiced ascetic life, meditation, fasting, charity, human services, or this repentance of the sin. All those things they practiced. Okay. Now here different sects are there. You know, Chisti Silsila is there. Okay, Suhrawadi Silsila is there. Khatri Silsila is there. Different Silsilas are there. Ajmer, Moinuddin Chisti, his tomb is very popular, Ajmer. Okay. Now here, second question, consider the following statements relating to Bhakti movement. Bhakti and Sufi movements denounced idol worship. Bhakti Sufi movements denounced idol worship. Is that true? Can we generalize? Can we generalize that Bhakti Sufi movements denounced idol worship? Bhakti tradition, you can see that two divisions are there. What are they? What are they? Saguna and Nirguna cult is there. Saguna cult, you see, Saguna cult. Yes, they believed God has physical attributes. They worshipped God in physical form, human form. They are Saguna Bhakti saints. Nirguna Bhakti saints are there. They believed God has no physical attributes, no human shapes. Okay, so we cannot say in generic, we cannot say in general that they opposed idol worship. Somebody followed it. For example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed it. Okay, somebody followed it and somebody preferred this omnipotent or omniscience. Okay, or God is non-visible, God has no physical shapes, etc. They are Nirguna cult. So first statement is wrong. Bhakti and Sufi saints also brought about important changes in the approach of religion, laying greater emphasis on formal observances and rituals. Do you think they given more importance to that observance of ritual sacrifices and all? No, they don't given that much importance to ritual sacrifices, priesthood and the rules, regulations, formulas, tantras, mantras, no importance. You see, Bhakti saints, you can see, yes, from villages to villages in group, when men and women, higher caste to lower caste, in group they are going, they are traveling, wandering, singing songs, devotional songs, and they are teaching that through this pure devotion you can get closer to God. No rituals and sacrifices. Okay. Second statement is wrong. They also contributed to growth of regional languages and literature. That is true. Because the teachings were in this regional language. Tamil saints in Tamil, Kannada saints in Kannada, Telugu saints in Telugu, okay, Punjabi saints in Punjabi. So you see that the teachings that was in, or the devotional songs composition that was in regional languages, so it contributed to growth of this vernacular language and literature. Not correct, they asked here, so your answer has to be 1 and 2 only. Question number 3, consider the following statements about Kalhana's Rajatarangani. Yes, Kalhana's Rajatarangani. Kalhana is the first Indian historian who wrote an authentic history of India. Others are European historians, okay. So his history about Kashmir belonging to 12th century AD. History about Kashmir belonging to 12th century AD. He is a Kashmiri historian, Brahmin historian, and wrote about the history of Kashmir. Wrote about the history of Kashmir, that is Rajatarangani. And that Rajatarangani is written in not in Urdu and Awadhi and Hindi. It is in Sanskrit. It is written in Sanskrit, okay, and it talks about the history of this socio-economic, political, cultural history of Kashmir, and he is critical about the policies and rules of these Kashmiri feudal lords. Okay, so here the statement is, it is an Awadhi poem which is wrong. This is a Sanskrit. This is a Sanskrit version, Sanskrit history. Okay, then see, it had critical accounts about the rulers and their policies. That is true. He criticized the policies and this way of ruling by these feudal lords in Kashmir. Second statement is correct. First statement is wrong. Your answer has to be 2 only. With reference to Indian philosophy, consider the following statements. Ramanuja advocated supreme knowledge about Brahma is required for salvation of soul. Ramanuja advocated supreme knowledge about Brahma is required for salvation of soul. Ramanuja. Yes, if Adi Shankaracharya, if Shankaracharya preferred yes, supreme knowledge, this supreme knowledge is required. This supreme knowledge is required for salvation. Okay, supreme knowledge about the Brahma. Everything is unreal, Maya, only one reality, that reality is Brahma. Brahma is identical with the self soul, and for which, in order to understand that, you require that much supreme knowledge. Knowledge is required for salvation about Brahma. That is a propagation by Shankaracharya. And this Ramanuja believed intense devotion, intense love to God Vishnu. Okay, your selfless love, your intense devotion to God, that devotion is required. That devotion is required for salvation. Okay, so the first statement is wrong. Shankaracharya advocated individual soul always remains distinct from the supreme soul. Individual soul is always distinct from supreme soul. Do you think this is the philosophy of Shankaracharya? I just said now, you remember? Shankaracharya says that entire world is Maya. Okay, he is sitting in front of me. Actually, he is not there. Okay, that Manu is there and he is doing something. Actually, such a thing is not happening there. Okay, because I am in an illusionary world. That is why I feel that these kind of the people with the different names are sitting in front of me. Such things are not there. They are not real. You are not real. I am not real. Only one reality, that is the Brahma, and Brahma is identical with the soul. That means individual soul and the supreme soul both are they are same. They are same. So that statement is wrong. Your answer has to be Delhi.